Eric, so I do want to bring the demand destruction point up because I think that is the key reason why we've seen WTI pull back so significantly. How do you factor that into, you know, buying energy stocks right now?
Yeah, if you look historically, the periods of negative demand growth are very, very rare. Usually it's a moderation in the rate of growth, meaning, you can absorb shale growth, which is going to be much more modest than people think. You can absorb any incremental barrels coming from OPEC. It's very, very unique time periods in history when demand growth goes negative. We've got to go back to COVID. We've got to go back to the financial crisis. And then before that, you've got to go back to the 1982, 83. And it usually relates to negative global GDP growth. Goldman Sachs just came out with a scenario analysis this week, and they said, look, let's put Europe in recession. Let's nail global GDP growth at half of that rate. And even then they have growth for oil growing. And so we think when people talk about recessions, what they're really talking about is a moderation in the rate of growth, not negative growth in and of itself. And as a reminder, I think that the supply challenges that the world faces will more than offset any decline in the rate of growth for oil. So that's the real story. It's not about demand. It's really about the supply challenges that we face.
Where do you think Canada fits into the equation these days in terms of the opportunity potentially or not?
It's tricky. Like we have legislation prevents any new pipelines beyond the TMX expansion, which would be early 2024. When Biden's traveling to Saudi Arabia with hat in hand begging for more oil, Canada, we never come up in the global conversation, and it confuses me. We produce the highest rated ESG barrel on this planet. We have an abundance of reserves. We're the best at oil extraction, and yet the administration never thought to come up here and ask for more oil from us. And so I think there's this weird tension between having to placate the progressives, so to speak, even though the world's hurtled into an energy supply crisis. So you've got to placate that group, but at the same time, there's the reality that we can't face what Europe is facing. We just had the largest landlord in Germany this morning say, so they have apartment buildings, and they're restricting the heating to 17 degrees Celsius because they have to conserve gas because they're going to run out of it in wintertime. That just came out this morning. And so my hope is what we're facing as a world is a teachable moment for energy policymakers to realize that you and I will be consuming hydrocarbons for the rest of our lifetimes. We need hydrocarbons as base load. And so let's be smart about it. Let's do it in an environmentally responsible manner, which we already do, but let's be honest with ourselves that we can't live off of solar, we can't live off of wind. We need hydrocarbons as base load.
Eric, because, as I look at the market and as I said, in full disclosure, like I'm a big energy investor. And I'm not worried. I'm not panicking. I'm, staying long, and I am staying long as well. And I'm curious and interested to see what happens when we do hit winter and people need to heat their homes. So that's so interesting to me that you said that Germany's largest landowner is going to be restricting the temperature. People really need to think about that.
Yes, they do.
But my question is, did you see any? Did the market pick up on that? Was there any movement in the pricing?
Not yet. I think Europe at least recognizes that they're hurtling like at Mach 15 into a brick wall. I think we're a little ignorant still in North America, thinking that we have an abundance, therefore we're safe. But we are in an era of higher oil and higher natural gas prices going forward due to those structural challenges, whether it's created by investors like myself, whether it's created by policymakers by having made horrendously awful decisions over the past 5, 6, 7 or longer years. And so it's really the culmination of that. We're emerging from COVID. You've got this demand surge. We've been averaging $100 oil this year with China locked down for most of the year. And so they will one day come out of lockdown, and you're looking at an over 1 million barrel per day rebound from there. You referenced earlier, like we have challenges from Russia. They could turn off the Nord Stream 2 pipeline to Europe. Well, for a replacement, that's almost 1 million barrels per day of oil demand growth incrementally. Compare that to the demand destruction we saw in the 2009 recession, which was 800,000 barrels per day globally. So people are panicked about demand destruction. They're not talking about the supply challenges that I think you could pick 15 of them that can more than overwhelm any demand destruction that we see.
Right. And I think it's also important to point out, where's Russian oil going right now?
It's basically flat. It's unchanged. And so it's really going to be a 2023 story once the financial embargoes from Europe come into place. But right now we're seeing no impact.